Hi. 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 Yeah, okay. I tried my best to figure out a way to not have a door movement, but I need this angle for at least a few shots, or I think this is one of the better angles that I'm gonna be working, that I can work with, so I don't have any other option but to have all that in the background. I think I'd call this less of a video essay and more of a commentary. It's mostly just, I guess, a question or like a thought process that I've had for a while, and so I'm just gonna try and flesh it out and see if it even works. So the first part of this, I guess, is what was the question? What was what was the thought? What was the idea? Well, originally it kind of started off on New Year's Eve. I don't know. I was just sitting up here and I had a lot of thoughts on my mind, and I wrote this little paragraph that I'm gonna recite it now. So it's supposedly a new year, and I guess that means there's supposed to be a new version of you or me. Let's go through it like this. A cooler version. A version that accepts the things that happen around you and doesn't ask for more. A version that is happy with the state of my relationships, my friendships, and doesn't yearn for more. A me that doesn't stress about grades but does well anyways. A me that has it all figured out, knows where she'll end up in a few months. A me that will graduate happily and have it all figured out. But you know what stings is that it's winter break. Well, it's winter break now. It's my last winter break in uni, and I'm in the same room I've been in for, let's say, 2.5 years now. And I feel like I've progressed as a person, where I am, who I am, what I'm like. It has all changed, and thankfully for the better. But can I really look back at the sophomore year version of me and say, you'll feel better, you'll make better friends, you'll find a place where you feel at home? Can I say that? I don't think I can. And honestly, over the years, the one thing I've learned and know by heart at this point is that people come and go. You cannot find permanence in something that's meant to be a fleeting part of your life. So, in the end, what do? Because that's the thing about human beings. I think we're made to find or create some sense of community, some sense of family. So my question sort of ends up being, what happens after that? So what happens when we're placing all of our happiness or the reasons for them on the people around us? And what do we have left when they leave? I'm not trying to find answers because, for starters, I don't think there's a fixed way to go about people in general. But I guess my point is, when you feel so much, when you just are as a person someone who cares about everything and everyone around you, how do you go about it when the things that are outside of your control don't really fall under your expectations? I came across an interview of Andrew Garfield. I do remember him saying um, that maybe part of us, part of when we come into the world, is that somewhere along the lines in the past, we have already developed and already have the things that will pain us already inside us. So the purpose of life or the journey of it sort of becomes, how do we deal with that? And how do we go past the wounds that are already existing in us? I guess the way I connected that was, maybe some of us just have that longing and that yearning for family and belonging in us. Maybe it does stem from the way we grew up, which could be different for a billion reasons. So Andrew's thing on family, I will connect that to a much broader trope that we have all seen in films, in television, in literature, in everything. And it is, of course, found family. I'm doing this. I don't even know if I'm going to add the text. Found family. Why is this such a big trope? Why is the like why are there so many examples of it in all times, all types of media globally? I know there's a bunch of K dramas, a bunch of smaller indie films, art films, bigger, I don't want to call it blockbuster, but like bigger cinema releases, all revolving around the trope of found family, why there's so much literature about it, why people idealize and love representations of friend groups in media and think of them as their friends, to take like the Friends cast, like Teen Wolf, Supernatural. Why do we resonate so much with it? Even your favorite, I guess, musicians. A lot of, I don't, do I want to name this? Like K-pop groups, like 17, BTS. Why do we find a sense of comfort in how close we think they are? They're not bound by, I guess, family ties or something like that. They're together because they're choosing to be. This is not about the K-pop part. Let's just talk about the shows and the movies. They're all representations of people that find each other by chance and choose to stick together. In some ways, we just internalize it, and their bonds become a part of us. We love these characters and their bonds so much that maybe you start thinking of a scenario where you're a part of them. You start thinking of them, these characters, as your family, as a place of comfort for you. The next thing I thought of after that was, in all the stuff that I've read, is there anything that addresses the why? The symposium, there's a lot of different themes being discussed in it. We're going to narrow down on the whole idea of love and your other half and finding your other half. So the entire pursuit of it is that your life, your purpose is to find this other half. And when you find this person who can complete you, that is when you will have a sense of like unity. You'll feel complete. You will be happy. This whole other half thing, it's the way Plato writes it, is it's also not just about like physical attraction, but it's an emphasis on the mind, the sense of connection and purpose that you would find in finding this other half, and that's maybe even the more important part is finding that. Does Plato answer our question? Does the symposium give us the reason, the answer to why we look for this found family? In some ways, I guess, yeah. I don't think you're looking for just one person to understand you. I don't think it's possible for one person to just completely understand you, and mostly one person is not you. I don't think you should solely be interacting with someone who agrees with everything that you have to say. I think differences are important. That's how you grow. That's how you analyze stuff. That's how you question things, and that's how you learn more. I think differences will always be important in relationships of all kind. I think the why is present in the symposium, but I would like to not think of it as just one person, but really, what we search for in family and friends and everything. And that is people who can sort of understand you and see the person in you rather than just the appearance of you. And maybe a sense of like an emotional connection so deep that sticks through the good and the bad. If we know now that we're yearning for a found family, and if we have some sense of why, then maybe the next step might be to learn about people, learn about the different types of people, what we might be, what kind of person we might be looking for in someone else, maybe what type of people might be better suited for us. The first being, the category longs for the look of an infinite number of anonymous eyes, in other words, the look of the public. The second category is made of people who have a vital need to be looked at by many known eyes. The third is a category of people who need to be constantly before the eyes of the person they love. And finally, the fourth, the rarest, people who live in the imaginary eyes of those who are not present, the dreamers. Generally, in the unbearable lightness of being, I didn't agree with or relate to any one character entirely. I think each person just had different parts of them that you could see yourself in. But in terms of the category of people, I think this is a good start. Not saying that you should judge everyone in your life on it, but maybe if you start thinking of the people in your life and yourself, you can use this as a way of finding out where you maybe fit or don't fit, If you know yourself well enough to know what kind of personalities you would be able to work with, or you can guess what kind of person you would probably be able to get along with better, and what kind of person might absolutely entirely annoy the life out of you. Maybe it's just me, but I think there's no benefit in spending too much time around people that you don't even find joy in. Okay, the next part might just be an excuse by me to bring supernatural into this, but let's look at Sam and Dean. A character analysis. Let's tie this to family. Let's tie this to family and expectations generally, and what that can do. Because in Dean, you have this one person who fully accepted the expectations that his father had of him, and he lived his entire life trying to live up to them. And really, at times in season one at least, he is, that I remember, he is referred to as having a soldier mentality, following every command given to him like a good, dutiful son. And Sam, on the other hand, had different ideas. He didn't want to live the life that was expected of him, and he was vocal about it. And he didn't just follow commands, but he enlisted his own desires into what he wanted out of his life, and that's what caused conflict. That's what he was called selfish for. To some degree, being selfish is good. Knowing what you want, even if it goes beyond the norm, beyond the expectations, is good, because at least that way you know what you want and you go after it. If you tie this back to people in your life and friendships and the way expectations and relationships work when it comes to a friendship, I think it's good to know what kind of relationships you want to foster with people, because not everyone's expectations out of a friendship are the same. I think you should always know your value and what you want out of it, because if it's just making you feel worse, you feel like you're investing too much time and effort and the other person isn't, and you think you don't deserve that, you probably don't. I think communication is really, really important, and at times, if you feel like it's not being matched, I'd say communicate that to the other person. And if that doesn't work, I think it's better to take a step away. But why communicate? You might be thinking, "Hey, I'm the kind of person who's just not good at talking. I'm the kind of person who can't do that, you know? I can't push you to communicate. I guess if you don't want to, there's no really solid reason. There's nothing anyone can say that's going to change your mind on it, but I can share pragmatist ideas with you and show you why that might be a good idea." James sort of talked about ideas. I think all of them talk about ideas as tools, as instruments, and you're supposed to use them in a way that benefit other people and you. James does talk about this stuff, I think, more on the personal, and Dewey sort of talks about a we outlook on life. Um, but at the end of it, the point's kind of the same. Ideas are tools, and you kind of need to use your thoughts as a way to advance and not go back. So, okay, maybe in the past you don't communicate and you sort of step out of it, and okay, you lose touch with the person, you're okay with that, whatever. Just because it's always been working in a certain way in the past doesn't mean that it should, or it can, or it's right for it to keep continuing that way with every single person in relationship. At some point there has to be some difference, because again, otherwise you're just sort of stationary. You can't, I also think there's not always just everyone else or just one person to blame. In some places you are at fault, and in some places the other person is at fault. But the key to a good relationship, or a thought of any kind, really is critical thinking and accepting that mistakes happen, but how do you move forward? Because you can't just abandon everything that you do. There has to be a working through it. And I think in relationships that comes to communications. And one other thing they also say is you need to know ideas and opinions of both sides of an argument, and you need to be functional. You kind of need to know how to work with both things, even stuff that you disagree with, because you can't just isolate yourself. Sometimes you can communicate how you feel to someone, a lot of times, and nothing really changes. The amount of effort doesn't go up, maybe it stays the same or even decreases. And you could feel a sense of guilt and responsibility over all of this, but I think at least try to communicate. Give it time, and if nothing changes, that's your answer. Because it is not your responsibility to keep sacrificing yourself for the sake of people who cannot give you the time of their day, who do not deserve you, or who at least are not making any effort to feel like you belong in a relationship that is meant to go both ways and not just one, you know? I don't have a fixed idea or like a fixed answer, but I was watching A Real Pain. The thing about both the characters is they represent so many different sides of trying to be human. You know, you have Benji, who he makes jokes, he's funny, he's charming, but he also feels, you know, the presence and loss of people in his life, of his family members, very, very deeply. And that is something that's really important to him. And on the other side, David seems like there's a lot of weight to his character, a lot of duty. He's a dad, he's a husband. He has OCD and he struggles with a lot of things. He's not like your first opinion him wouldn't be that he's super charming, you know? He struggles to be social and connect with people as well as Benji does, but at the same time he sort of learns to balance that conflict in him. He learns to live with the stuff that he struggles with, still be functional in some way, and kind of continue to keep treading on. Whereas Benji shows the side of like the struggle with that and the struggle in trying to move forward but being unable to. Both sides of what happens when you cannot and what happens when you can move forward. In some way, I do think that it comes down to choice, so it's up to you to, in a very simple sense, if you are in a cycle that you are not satisfied with, unfortunately, no one else, in most cases, you know, when you don't have that support system, when you don't have that found family or that sense of someone backing you up, the only person who's going to get you out of shit is you, and the only person who's going to help you is you. You need to be that person for yourself. And I wish that was a choice, but for some of us, it doesn't end up being a choice. It's just something that you have to do for your sake. I think one day you will find those people. It could be your kids, it could be your parents, it could be your friends, it could be your neighbors. I don't know. But to get to the point of having that sense of family around you, you cannot, you can't stay where you are. You have to keep moving forward, allowing yourself to advance through both the hard times and the good, because up until you find those people, you are your people. I think a culmination of everything is probably that. Maybe to get to that point, you should know your worth. You should invest in relationships, but you also shouldn't accept something that you don't think you deserve in like a bad way, you know? And you should communicate it. And if you think those efforts aren't being met, then you don't need to kill yourself to give someone else some life. I think that's not fair to you either. But there does need to be an open conversation about issues or conflicts or faults in both people. It exists for everyone. You know, no one person is guilty all the time. And if in a relationship, if somehow one person is being blamed for everything that's going wrong, everything that's going wrong in that, that in itself is a red flag. That in itself is a problem, because I genuinely don't think it's humanly possible for that to be the case. I guess yeah, I guess that is my answer to this scenario.